Saturday, March 24th, 1984. That's the day 5 students reported to the Shermer High School for detention, or the Breakfast Club, as they called it. Claire, Bender, Andrew, Brian, and Allison all came from different walks of life, and their shared experience that day became one of the classic teen dramas of the 80s. The Breakfast Club, brilliantly conceived, written, and directed by the late, great John Hughes. So much of this movie stems from Hughes' own experience growing up in the Chicago suburb of Northbrook, which has similarities to the make-believe town that the Breakfast Club was set in. A town he called Shermer, Illinois, after Northbrook's original historical name of Shermerville. What transpires between the characters that day unfolds like a play. And it was one of the first times that we saw teenagers from vastly different home lives and backgrounds joined together, giving a real glimpse into the hierarchy that exists in American high school culture and how the shared shame of detention can level that order, even if just for that one day. Because this movie was so close to John Hughes, he was very particular about how the music and the soundtrack would factor into it. He wanted the music to be percussive, heavy on drums, so that it would reflect the chaotic emotions of the main characters. Claire's upwardly mobile expectations and the tug-of-war between her parents, played by Molly Ringwald. Allison's artistic isolation, performed pitch perfect by Ali Sheedy. Andrew's pressure to perform well in sports and maintain his father's approval, portrayed by Emilio Estevez. Brian's need to maintain perfect grades in the turmoil of being thought of as a mama's boy, played by Anthony Michael Hall. And Bender, the troubled delinquent who seems to have no respect for anyone, performed so well by Judd Nelson that he reportedly turned everybody on the set against him and even caused John Hughes to proclaim that he would never work with Nelson again. The music for this cast of characters had to speak to their inner chaos. So Hughes selected Keith Forsey, a former drummer from London turned producer, for the job. Forsey began playing drums in bands around London in the latter part of the 60s, which put him in pole position for the disco explosion that would happen in the 70s. He worked with Donna Summer, among others at the time, and as the decade wore on, embraced electronic and synth sounds. By the time the 80s rolled around, he was producing albums for other bands, including former Generation X frontman Billy Idol. He produced Idol's solo debut in 1982, and the next year struck gold with Idol's Rebel Yell album, which went double platinum. He then quickly got into movie soundtracks, co-writing Flashdance What a Feeling for Irene Cara to sing. He won an Academy Award for that song, and went on to co-write songs for Ghostbusters, Beverly Hills Cop, The Never-Ending Story, and The Breakfast Club. Forsey was paired up with Steve Schiff, a guitarist and songwriter from the incomparable Nina Hagen's band, to create the score for The Breakfast Club. Having gotten the gig, the two set out to write a song for the movie specifically for the band Simple Minds to record. That song, Don't You Forget About Me, was absolutely intended for the band to sing and play for this movie, but getting them to do it was an uphill battle, to say the least. The first time that Forsey played the demo of the song for the band, after a concert stop in the US, they quickly declined. Simple Minds, so named after a lyric in David Bowie's song, The Gene Genie, was a cool band from the UK, totally doing their own thing. The band was led by Jim Kerr, who was of the opinion that they didn't need to perform material written by other people. Forsey was dejected, but he had to try to get the song done for the movie, so next he offered it to Brian Ferry of Roxy Music, who also declined it. He then offered it to Billy Idol, who he thought would be an easy yes since they had experienced so much success together on Idol's own albums, but Billy Idol also declined to record it. Corey Hart was brought up by the record label as a possible artist to record the song, having had a hit with the song Sunglasses at Night, but Forsey declined that idea. The Fix also then reportedly passed on the song. Jim Kerr of Simple Minds has said that at the time, the band were busy working on their album Once Upon a Time and did not feel that they needed to waste time doing this song for some American movie. It took the band's label, A&M Records, to keep pushing Don't You Forget About Me on them, along with Kerr's wife at the time, Pretenders frontwoman Chrissie Hynde, who was encouraging him to record it to help get it done. Forsey made several impassioned calls expressing his adoration for Simple Minds to Kerr, and finally, he devised a last-ditch plan. He flew to London saying that he had a new song to present to the band. But he didn't have any such thing. He just wanted to try to change their minds about it one more time. For whatever reason, this time it worked, and the band finally agreed to record the song in the fall of 1984. The recording happened in a London studio in the span of one afternoon, and even then, the band didn't really think that it would go anywhere. In fact, the whole session was approached with a real lack of seriousness on the part of the band. Kerr added the la 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 at the end of the song simply because he didn't have any other lyrics as a placeholder. But in another example of the happy accidents of rock and roll, everybody else in the band liked it, and Forsey demanded that that be kept in the recording. Kerr was okay with that. He just had no real opinion about it either way. The song debuted in 1985 in both the opening and closing credits for The Breakfast Club. When the movie soundtrack was released shortly after the film debuted, Don't You Forget About Me went to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart in the US, and it became a hit worldwide. Before this, Simple Minds were the kind of band that had critical success, but nothing like what they saw after the release of this song that they fought so hard against taking part in. Forsey has said that this song is his greatest achievement, and that it could only have been sung by Simple Minds. And the lyrics go like this. Won't you come see about me? I'll be alone, dancing, you know it, baby. Tell me your troubles and doubts, giving everything inside and out, and love strange, so real in the dark. Think of the tender things that we were working on. Slow change may pull us apart. When the light gets into your heart, baby, don't you forget about me. Now, these lyrics bring to mind one of the more famous lines in the movie The Breakfast Club, a line that seems to sum up the view of teenagers looking from the outside at adulthood and what comes afterward, when Ally Sheedy, as Allison, says to the group, when you grow up, your heart dies. This line is one that Molly Ringwald has pointed out in years since as her favorite in the entire film. 7 words that perfectly describe how, more than anything, most teenagers just don't want to end up like their parents. The driving idea behind the entire movie. And the song goes on. Will you stand above me? Look my way, never love me. Rain keeps falling down. Will you recognize me? Call my name or walk on by. Rain keeps falling down. There's that class system that I mentioned earlier, evident in 1980s high school culture and still evident today. When you watch The Breakfast Club, you realize that these particular 5 teenagers are not that different when it comes to their coming-of-age anxieties. But you're also left with the feeling that it won't really matter, that they will all go back to their respective turfs and corners afterward. Maybe giving each other a wave in the hallway, maybe not. And the song ends. Don't you try and pretend. It's my feeling we'll win in the end. I won't harm you or touch your defenses, vanity and security. Don't you forget about me. I'll be alone, dancing, you know it, baby. Going to take you apart. I'll put us back together at heart, baby. Don't you forget about me. And these lines repeat over and over at the end of the song. As you walk on by, will you call my name? And then Jim Kerr's now famous la 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 la's over and over, his placeholder lyrics that remained forever from that short recording session that spawned such a huge hit song. Now for his part, Kerr has this to say on the Simple Minds website about the song. He says, Lady Luck certainly happened our way when producer Keith Forsey and movie director John Hughes came banging on our door in November of 1984. The Breakfast Club movie had recently finished shooting, and they were adamant that they wanted Simple Minds to record the main song for the soundtrack, Don't You Forget About Me. The success of that song and the movie fast-tracked Simple Minds onto a level of success that may or may not already have been coming our way. I am eternally grateful to be associated with a record that has given so much pleasure to so many. Plus, it's always a blast to perform. That apart, I must admit that I also like the notion of having sung on a record that once sat at the #1 position on the American Billboard charts. In 2016, The Breakfast Club was selected for the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. And so did another of Hughes' films, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which was actually selected first in 2014. You can still take a pilgrimage to see the actual school where The Breakfast Club was shot in suburban Chicago, Maine North High School in Des Plaines, Illinois. The building is now owned by the Illinois State Police and is used largely for storage, but much of the exterior remains the same. You'll be able to spot the exact location in the film where John Hughes himself, playing Brian's father, picks him up after detention. Anthony Michael Hall, who played Brian, said in recent interviews, including with the NME, that Hughes had spoken to him and others in the late 80s about making a sequel to the movie, which would have portrayed the characters in their middle age. It never came to be, of course, and John Hughes passed away in 2009 after having suffered a heart attack. His work and his uncanny ability to make convincing movies about teenagers just being teenagers will live on forever, of course. And every time we hear, "Don't You Forget About Me," we're taken back to Shermer High and The Breakfast Club. Each one of us relating in some way to Claire, Allison, Brian, Andrew, or even Bender. Fist up in the air as the song rolls at the end. I'm Janda, and this has been Behind the Song. Special thanks to Christian Lane for the music you hear on these podcast episodes. Subscribe on YouTube and watch the videos, and you can follow at Behind the Song Podcast on TikTok. On the way, an anti-Valentine's song about the pitfalls of love and more classic rock and roll.